Chinese electric vehicle stocks NIO, Li Auto, BYD, and Xpeng are in focus as investors look to capture the next hot trend in the stock market. But which ones are just a flash in the pan, and which companies could potentially give Tesla and other major automakers a run for their money? Here to weigh in is China EV expert Michael Dunne, CEO of ZoZo Go. Thanks for joining me today, Michael.
Thank you, Alyssa. Great to be here.
All right, so a lot of these China EV stocks are finally coming back down to earth a little bit after some meteoric moves, but their valuations remain pretty sky high and they're getting quite a bit of attention right now. So what do you think is behind this heightened interest as of late?
All right, let's step back for a moment and look at the big picture. We're in the midst of a once in 100 years transformation of the auto industry. And what do I mean by that? For most of the last century, the heart of the car was the engine, pistons and drivetrains and fuel and spark plugs. But what we're moving toward, and very quickly, is that the new heart of the car will be a computer and the new gasoline of the car will be software. So why does that matter? Well, Tesla's pioneering this transformation and the car is changing before our eyes, so that when investors look at new car companies, they start to ask themselves, are they the old type, engine-centered, or are they the new type, computer and software-centered? And with these Chinese firms, NIO, Xpeng, and Li Auto, we definitely see them in the Tesla camp. And that explains the great valuations and the huge enthusiasm for these stocks.
Interesting. So would you say that those three stand out the most to you in terms of ones that are really going to start ramping up production and have that kind of edge in terms of technological innovation?
Yes, no question about it. Xpeng, Li Auto, there's a few others, WM Motors, as well as NIO. They really are the ones out front. I call them part of the fabulous five, the Fab Five. And Michigan basketball fans will remember these guys from years ago. Very talented, very young, and very fragile. Keep in mind that about a year ago, NIO needed a bailout from a provincial government in China because as an electric vehicle startup, things are touch and go. They're not making money yet. And yet suddenly, when Tesla's stock started to soar earlier this year, investors said, oh, we're too late for the Tesla train. What other car can we jump on? And the names NIO, Xpeng, and Li Auto really stand out in that regard. But I want to emphasize the fact that we're still early days. These are companies that are less than 5 years old, and they will need to go through many more hurdles before they establish themselves on a par with Tesla.
Interesting. Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question to you. Where does Tesla fit into all this? Because clearly they're that 800-pound gorilla when you're talking about the EV pure plays. They have big operations in China. So where does Tesla fit into this landscape? Do you think they're still the dominant player, or should they be worried with all of these startups with China government backing it? It sounds like hot on their tail.
Tesla's way out in front, make no mistake about it, at least 5 years ahead of everybody else in the industry, whether established automakers want to admit that publicly or not. In private, they acknowledge that Tesla's got it figured out, not just in the sense of knowing how to build great electric vehicles, but designing the car around the computer so that there's software updates that come over the air while you're sleeping at night. You have autonomous vehicle functions. You really have an advanced supercomputer on wheels, and Tesla's in a class by itself. Also helping Tesla, they started a factory in Shanghai earlier this year, and this, for the calendar year 2020, Tesla will sell more than 100,000 cars in China. That's a phenomenal start. No global automaker has had such a fast start. So Tesla's way out in front, and there's no secret. Xpeng and NIO and others make no secret of their ambition to become the Teslas of China. They're giving chase, they're pursuing, they enjoy the backing of the government, but it won't be any easy trick to catch number one Elon Musk and Tesla.
Yeah. So where do you see the China EV market headed from here? Do you see any industry consolidation happening in the future? Or do you think we're set to see even more EV names, maybe lesser known ones that are behind the Fab Five that you mentioned cropping up and really trying to gain momentum there?
Well, as we know, there's hundreds, literally hundreds of EV makers. 95% of them you can set aside. They're not going to be relevant. They're going to go away. They're going to fail. They're going to go bankrupt. But so because you need deep, deep pockets, and this is what NIO has. They're backed by Tencent. Xpeng is backed by Alibaba, and Li Auto's founder is a billionaire in his own right. So they need the big bucks, they need the backing, and they need the government support. And when those are required, the field really narrows quickly. So 5 or 6 companies is all. Don't look for some other ones coming up quickly from behind. This is it.
All right. And then talking about the backing of the likes of Tencent and Alibaba and other US automakers looking to maybe grab a piece of the pie, do you see any sort of other partnerships or acquisitions on the horizon?
You know, this is one thing that distinguishes the tech industry, tech-driven, software-driven new generation of automakers from their cousins in the Chinese auto industry. So most traditional Chinese auto companies have partnered with global automakers, and GM and BMW and Toyota, they all have joint ventures in China with partnerships. But what's different with these tech companies is they're saying, you know what, electric, autonomous, connected vehicle technologies are so new, we don't need to partner with global automakers. We're already there. In fact, we could go ahead of them. We could leapfrog them. And as a result, in as much as the global automakers would like to partner with these Chinese companies, I don't think that's going to happen. Look for the Chinese to go alone and say, we can do this with our own brains and our own money.
Yeah, no, speaking of maybe the little bit of the battle between the US and China, we have these fraud allegations against Candy Technologies, an EV player there, and talk of potential delistings of China stocks due to those regulatory compliance and auditing issues. Do you think US investors should be wary of the risks that this poses for some of these high-flying names that we've seen?
Absolutely, there are risks. Number one risk is the heightened tensions between the United States and China. We haven't seen this level of acrimony in 40 or 50 years. It's really serious, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So political risk is there. In addition, Chinese companies, for reasons that we don't need to go into here and now, but are important, they're able to list on US exchanges without full transparency into their financials. I think that's well known on Wall Street now, but maybe not so well known among retail investors. So buyer beware. You may not be seeing the entire picture when you buy a Chinese company.
All right. Well, is there anything else that investors should know before looking more into Li Auto, NIO, or any of these other China stocks that are cropping up in the EV space? Yes,
I think Chairman Mao used to say, the future is bright. There will be some bumps along the way. Keep that in mind when you invest in these Chinese Fab 5. 5 years from now, I expect them to be doing very well. But between now and then, some problems are bound to arise and there will be setbacks. So get ready for a rocky ride. But overall, it looks quite promising.
Hi there. Thanks so much for watching Investing Strategies on our YouTube channel. If you want more executive interviews and analysis of key trends to watch, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date.